Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I am Matt Connarton. And with me, as always, of course, the Honorable Gary S. Hopper.
Matt!
Yes?
I haven't seen you since this morning.
I know. It's been hours.
It's been hours. It's unbelievable.
It's been even longer since I've seen you than I've seen these guys.
I know. What's going on with that?
I don't know.
Yeah, Matt came over, Sir Matt of Connarton came over to the house with Ross Terrio and Mel Gibson and George Lambert, and little Mel, and we took Matt out shooting for his first time ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah, ever. My first time firing a gun ever.
Ever.
It was fun. It was fun.
Do you remember what you shot, Mr. Matt?
God, no. I shot an AR-15 at one point, right?
Pistol.
Yeah.
Right. Did you shoot the AR-15 pistol?
Did I? I don't know. I shot the what's the Che Guevara gun there that
Oh, that's AK-47.
AK-47. I shot that.
Yeah, he calls it the Che gun.
Yep. I don't remember the names of anything else.
Okay.
I shot a lot of different guns.
See, I started him off with the 22, right? Okay, you guys love this, right? So I started him off with the 22, and when I'm teaching somebody to shoot, there's really only one gun rule. Point it in a safe direction. It's always loaded. If you do that, you're good. Anyway, that's not really...
That's one rule?
Well, it's a rule with like an addendum attached.
It's addendum.
Okay,
addendum. It's like denim, only without the den. So, so we went through the safety rules, and then I start them off. I try to start people off with 22s, because then they get over cause people who haven't shot before think that this is going to be this crazy, loud bang and recoil and.
Sounds scary.
Yeah, scary stuff.
I was scared.
I know. So I started off with the 22 Ruger, the Ruger single six, right? The little revolver.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
No, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we moved up to the Ruger 1022, so we could try a rifle. I think you tended to like that the best, because you actually
That's
hit.
Nice.
I actually hit something.
You actually hit something.
It's nice.
Yeah.
It is a nice little gun.
Do you know what you hit, or you just hit?
Doesn't matter.
You hit something.
Neighbor's house, I think. So.
Heard something thump. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard glass breaking.
So okay, so this is what this is. This is when I became a jerk by accident. I like it when I'm a wicked jerk, but it's by accident, so I don't feel as guilty. Because I had two yellow boxes. One was 357 and one was 38 specials, and I meant to graduate them up to 38 specials because as far as recoil goes, that's really kind of what I had. That was the next in the sequence. Mm-hmm. So I let you shoot the 38 special, I thought, but it was 357.
Yeah. Yeah.
He wasn't ready for that one.
No.
No. That barked a lot more. But I shot 30. He did end up shooting 38s, 357 Magnum. He shot the 10 millimeter. Mm-hmm. Did you shoot the 9 millimeter? I don't remember.
I think so.
Okay. So that was it for handguns, I think. And then you shot the Mini 14, which is a 223.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you like that?
I don't remember.
That's the one with the scope, with crosshairs.
Oh, yeah.
Recoil shouldn't have been bad at all.
Yeah, no, I did like that. Yeah.
And
okay.
and then you shot Ross's AK-47. The recoil on that shouldn't have been bad, but it's hard. The sights on it are harder to see.
Yeah.
I can't see. I want to buy one, but I can't see the sights anymore. I really can't. I'd have to get a scope and all that crap too. Then you shot the 8mm Mauser that Ross brought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was kind of cool.
Which I don't hits about as hard as a 30-06. And then the 12 gauge. You did shoot that, right?
Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah, shot the 12 gauge. So you had you pretty much felt as much recoil as you need to.
Yeah.
Did you have fun?
I did. It was fun. It was definitely fun.
So you get over that threshold of it's like the first time you jump out of an airplane or something. I don't know.
Yikes.
No, it's not that bad.
No.
No. But you had a good time. We had a good time.
Yeah,
except
absolutely.
Nobody brought me coffee.
Yeah.
It was really weird.
Got to pay their dues.
I know, right?
See, I didn't see the
up with
Facebook
that?
message until later.
Yeah, sure. And
It should be
so
a standard practice, shouldn't it?
you think
Show
they'd
up
bring
with coffee.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not the one. Who was it who actually stopped? It was Mel and George.
Mel and George,
actually
they showed
stopped
up with
Dunkin'
iced
Donuts.
coffee,
And
right?
didn't get you.
And they didn't get me one.
I think they did it intentionally to mock you.
I think so.
Because George is waiting for your endorsement. So until you officially endorse him, like John kind of thought about maybe possibly doing,
Well,
he's going to mock you with coffee.
He hasn't bought John any coffee.
Oh, right.
Right.
So there you
Okay, I
go.
see how it all works.
Yeah. It's not. Yeah, it's pretty simple.
Slow
Gary
progression.
bought me a coffee, and I think maybe I'll endorse him for governor.
See,
Nice. You got to run now. You
I have to
You
run.
got John Heichel's
Yeah,
endorsement.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean that should be enough.
That should be.
Well, now you can't endorse George because you have to endorse yourself.
Well, I don't know anybody would. I don't have a lot of regard for anybody who would vote for me. So
Oh, okay.
anyway,
Endorsements are okay.
so Gus, I've forgotten your last name because I'm Irish.
Breton.
Breton or Brenton?
No, Breton. Like Bretton
Breton.
Woods with one T.
Bretton Woods with one T. I don't know how to spell it anyway, so it doesn't matter how many T's you add in there, unless it's Breton and something like that, you know. Otherwise, and the always honorable and very frequent guest,
Yes.
Representative John Heichel.
I think he
Hey,
holds the
also-
record.
Does this count? This doesn't count. Like this afternoon doesn't count for.
No, that's a different
No,
show.
it's
No,
not.
but you hold the record for both shows, I think.
I have no affiliation.
I may hold the
with-
record other than host of shows.
Yes.
Pretty much.
I think
You
so,
could.
yeah.
You very well could.
Yeah.
Hey, so last week I told you we went down because we were going to talk about the Constitution this week, and so I stopped by your Uptown Auto, and I got a stack of about 15, I think, Constitutions, and I handed them out in front of the studio. There was like this huge crowd waiting for me to come down and hand them out because I announced it ahead of time.
Yeah.
Autographed or just no?
All
No,
the paparazzi that were there.
but there was this one lady I said, would you like a copy of the Constitution? She goes, yeah. And then she opened up and saw your business card in it. Says, oh, I know what this is all about. I got this figured out. She thought it was just
Thought you were running.
she
That's
thought
me.
I was
Yeah.
John Heichel.
And she said, "Take a hike, Heichel."
No, she didn't say that.
I know, but
It would have been cooler. It would have been cool. I should
Hey,
have.
that's Ray Buckley.
I know. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Don't plagiarize the Raymond.
His brilliant,
Raymond, yeah.
Right.
brilliant campaign slogan.
Right.
So anyway, we're one of the things, because we're wanting to talk about tonight, or the main thing we want to talk about is the Constitution. But I was going to let this kind of be your show, because this is the thing that's really bothering you, is how little in the State House and the federal government they even pay attention to the Constitution. It's like last week we had Karen Testerman on. We were talking about can a because her opponent when she gets into the general election is Jean Shaheen, and Jean Shaheen voted to support the Small Arms Treaty with the UN. And the question was, can a treaty supersede your constitutional rights? Karen believes it can. And she actually posted, she sent it in a private message, where it says that in the Constitution. I forgot to repost it in the on rock, paper, hand grenades. Dan Itza believes it can't. So where are you guys on that? But that kind of gives you an idea how important the Constitution
How old is the treaty?
But let me finish. It's important what the Constitution says, but there's the other aspect of that, and the other aspect of that is, let's presume that the Constitution trumps the treaty, which I think it should. If it doesn't, in fact, it absolutely should. Our United States government is so constantly stepping on our constitutional rights, with almost oblivious to them, or they don't care about them. I'm not sure it would matter. They'll vote in a treaty and say, "Oh, we're just supporting the treaty." Well, that's unconstitutional. Yeah, prove it.
Well,
And then they will arrest you.
well, yes, they will, and they're extremely overreaching.
But they do it all the time.
They do it all the time. You know, Article 6.
Yep.
second paragraph. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof. So the laws have to be made in pursuance of the Constitution, and all treaties made, or which shall be made, under the authority of the United States. The United States doesn't have, well, continue, shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. So not only is the Constitution and any laws made in pursuance thereof, the treaties that are made have to also be within the authority of the United States to make. And the Second Amendment trumps everything. So how do they propose this treaty is going to have any effect on anybody?
Right.
Well, the thing is, that if
It's
they
not
vote,
being made in pursuance, within the authority, the scope of their authority.
my point is though that even if that's true,
Mhm.
and you just read it, so it's true, they'll just ignore it.
They do
Yeah.
all the time.
I mean, you look at what the NSA is doing and the IRS is doing. It's constantly,
Sure they are.
but
Tapping your emails and phone calls and absolutely.
But anyway, so let's go. Let's start where you wanted to go with this, John. After my ranting, how did you want to proceed?
It's Article 6 in the U.S. Constitution, for those of you that would like to read it.
Right.
How would I like to proceed? Well, we have
You look like you're playing cards, John, because the way you're sitting.
I kind of am, and I got the winning hand.
Ah,
You like that, huh? You like
That's
that.
very good. Very good.
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
You are officially good on television.
Officially,
Yes.
yes, officially.
We label you good on television.
Thank you. Where I'd like to go with this? Well, the first thought we had was to do some kind of a show and educate the people on the Constitution. And most people, when they think of the Constitution, think of the Constitution of the United States. Okay?
Right.
Most people think of that. Most people in New Hampshire or their home state don't think of their state constitution.
Yep.
Because most people don't know that they have one.
Correct.
I mean,
I would agree with that.
If they do, great. Most people don't. Most people think Constitution, this is it.
Right.
I've seen politicians, when they're campaigning, they pull it out of their pocket. I support this. But maybe have never read it or ever looked at it. I mean, everybody uses it. It's kind of like they all hide behind it.
Prop.
It's a prop.
Yeah.
Exactly. And but then there's some of us that believe that this is much more than a prop. It is that it is the supreme law of the land, and the United States Constitution, the United States of America, or the New Hampshire Constitution. The New Hampshire Constitution is what governs the state of New Hampshire.
Yeah, it's a restriction on the state government.
Right. So when all else fails and everything else is happening outside and the government shuts down for a day, New Hampshire still has its constitution intact. And the U.S. Constitution was actually drafted after the New Hampshire Constitution. And a lot of the
That's
ideas of it was actually the New Hampshire Constitution was the first one.
No kidding.
And the
Didn't
U.S.
realize that.
Constitution was 1792 or 89 or 90. No, 17.
I think
Yeah,
it was
after 1791.
it was
I
in,
thought.
in 89 and it was ratified in 91.
That's
Yeah,
right.
ratified in 91.
And the New Hampshire Constitution was 1784. So 5 years before.
Wow.
So a lot of the people that wrote that and contributed to that and contributed to the U.S.
Yeah, I was actually, I think I posted on Facebook as a copy of the letter from New Hampshire agreeing. They were the state that agreed to the Constitution and made it legit because you needed so many of the states to agree to the Constitution. But they sent it with an addendum saying, we agree to this, it's, we're making this the law of the land, but we want you to consider this. And part of that was the Second Amendment, and that was the genesis, or part of the genesis of the Bill of Rights. was that letter from the state of New Hampshire.
I've heard the Bill of Rights, which ended up being only 10 to the U.S. Constitution, 10 amendments. I heard there was originally over 120.
Wow,
That
really?
they slowly took apart one after the other, and these 10 were the ones that the states were absolutely not willing. So I'd like to see what the other 110 were.
That would be interesting. Yeah.
Because, why not?
Yeah. That would be.
That'd
very
be interesting. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, there must have been quite a bit of value there, considering who wrote them.
Mm-hmm.
The founders.
Yeah.
So we had this idea, let's, you're looking for things to discuss on the show, and we're looking for places to talk about this book that has been with us for 250 years, and this is the New Hampshire one, for instance, is the second one. We have one that dates back to 1776 that was around. So each time the new corporation is formed, they write a new constitution, like any corporate document would be.
Can you clarify that? I mean, I've heard you talk about that before, but when you use that word corporation in this context, can you? Because some people are going to hear that and say, "What does he mean, corporation?"
The state of New Hampshire is a corporation, as is the United States, as is everything else, because we deal in corporate contract law throughout. And when these corporations are formed, I mean, we have a corporate seal. We have New Hampshire corporate seal. We've got two corporate seals. Well, we have a corporate seal, and we have another seal that was called an organic seal. On a lot of our documents in the State House, we have it at the in the front of the Representatives Hall, where the speaker is. There's two different seals there. I don't know how many people have ever noticed that they're different.
Yeah.
There's two there.
Yeah.
And one is the organic one of the fish and the arrows and pine trees.
Yeah.
That was a big industry back then. This is of the people.
That's 17. We had a constitution in 1776, which came out January 5th, 76, and that's the seal that they had.
And that's pretty wild to read that one. That's pretty wild. But then when the new corporation was formed in 1784, the new Constitution was written.
Okay.
To go along with that new corporation. And I've always wondered, I mean, were things that were attached to the previous corporation part of the new corporate deal? Or did the new corporation say, like when you buy when one corporation buys another, you can go, well, we're not taking any of your liabilities before this one's formed.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely a corporation. It's a public corporation. I mean, all corporations are public, and all corporations are granted from this main one, which is the state of New Hampshire.
Okay.
And the federal United States, like things are of the United States, the military, the armed forces of the United States. I don't know they say of America, but it's the corporation. It's that 10 square mile designation on the Potomac in Washington, D.C., actually.
Okay.
You can go to Dun and Bradstreet, and you can do a search for any town in any state. You can do a search for the police department, the courts of that state, and you will find a separate Dun and Bradstreet number on each one of them.
No kidding.
Yeah, they're all listed
Very
as
interesting.
corporations, and they act as they're municipal corporations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've heard every town is incorporated. They're all proudly incorporated
Right.
whenever they were incorporated.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's all corporate. It's
Yeah.
all contract law.
Okay.
Not that I'm not an attorney.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway.
So anyway, what do we want to talk about? We thought we'd bring the different constitutions to the forefront and explain to the people out there. So let them know that they exist and where to find them if they're looking for them, and that we have one for New Hampshire and the United States of America as well.
Oh, what do you know what the general court website's called? It's the New Hampshire legislature, or the Senate and everything else, is called the New Hampshire General Court.
Right.
I don't know what the actual web address, but if you Google search New Hampshire General Court, you will come up with a website, and on the front page of that website, down on the left-hand side, it'll say other links of interest, I think. You click on that, and that'll have, you can from there get a copy or read the New Hampshire and or the federal Constitution. I think the federal. I know the New Hampshire one because I refer to it a lot. But anyway, so that's one place they can go to get it. Or they can go stop by Uptown Auto and get a copy.
Of the U.S. Constitution.
Of the U.S.
I don't
Constitution.
have New Hampshire ones on hand right now, but you can go to the Secretary of State's office at the State House.
Secretary of State's.
And they have New Hampshire Constitutions.
Yep.
When they print them, but they should always.
At the website, www.nhredress.info, there's the 1776 Constitution and the 1784 Constitution. The earliest copy we have available of the 1784 is from a book that was preserved, which was printed in 1789, which is very important because in 1792 there was the Act of 1792, which made it changed a lot of things in the New Hampshire Constitution to make it conform to the U.S. Constitution, which had just been ratified. And if you go to the Secretary of State Archives, talk to Justin or Ben over there, the guys who work there, or Brian, the archivist, they give you great information, and they love to help, and they'll pull up old documents you can look up. You can hold old parchments and read redress petitions, for instance. They're very, very knowledgeable.
How different are those constitutions, the two New Hampshire ones?
The 1776 is actually, from what I can tell, it looks like a big parchment.
Yeah.
And that was it. Just
okay.
one parchment, and it's in about 3 pages the way they scanned it.
Okay.
I've never put them back together to see what they look like.
Handwritten.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was handwritten, but it was. When you read it, it looks very much like the Declaration of Independence.
Okay.
And what I think is, the 13 colonies probably all did something similar, and it was actually a letter from the House of Representatives to the governor and his council, saying, "You guys have left town. You've left us with no government. What do you think you're doing?"
Right.
Yeah, and it was a list of grievances. It was actually written in the same manner as a redress petition to the governor, because it was at that time the governor and the council that first saw redress petitions and then would pass them down to the House. There was no Senate during the province times.
Okay.
Now that province time. That's during the time the king was in charge.
Yeah, the provincial government was in effect until 1776, when till January 5th, when the House took it upon themselves to put a petition for redress in to the governor and his council. I think it was Wentworth, right?
Governor Wentworth, he left, and they were.
He skipped town.
They were writing to the king saying, "We have no government. We have nothing."
Yeah.
This guy skipped out. He's heading back to England, or wherever. I think he went back to England.
Yeah.
And
Get out while the getting's good.
Oh yeah.
he got out early because he was in trouble. Yeah, Governor Wentworth. So we could start. I mean, there's.
Why don't we start with the New Hampshire Constitution, start with Article 1, and we can cross-reference to see where that is in the federal Constitution and work our way through it.
Sure. Article 1.
That's the New Hampshire one you got?
The New Hampshire Constitution, Article 1. Part first, Bill of Rights. Equity of men, origin, and object of government. All men are born equally free and independent. Therefore, all government of right originates from the people. It's founded in consent and instituted for the general good. June 2nd, 1784. So what I was told, and if somebody that really knows this stuff is Secretary of State Bill Gardner.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what he loves, this part of it. He told me that this was moved to number 1 because they felt that this number 1 was actually so important. I think he had.
Well, it's stating from the beginning where the power comes from and everything else. So it is kind of the first. It should be the first because it's giving you an idea. Okay, we basically are establishing government and the power comes from the people.
That's right.
Okay, so you have to establish where the power for this document comes from.
Right.
And I
So
can't.
the power does come from the people.
Right.
And that's a real important issue that we have to get across to everyone, that the people have the power
Right.
of their government. I was also told by him that this was number 12, or it wasn't one of the first Bill of Rights, but they thought it was so important that they actually had moved it back to number 1.
Okay.
It wasn't there originally.
Well, you think about where that came from. You went from the provincial governor and the king had absolute authority to a document that says no, no government can really effectively govern the people unless it's the people that are the ones who determine its makeup, who is in it, and everything else. It has to be made up or established by the people themselves. It can't be by one person, or there is fundamentally corruption right from the get-go.
Correct. No more dictator. No kings or dictators.
Right.
No, right.
And it's founded in the consent of the people. You know, one thing I've never heard anybody talk about is what happens when the people withdraw their consent. We don't consent to that part or that part or that part. You know, Common Core.
Yeah.
Or any other, you know, the treaty that you were talking about, the Small Arms Treaty. We don't consent. We withdraw our consent for you to take care of that. How are they supposed to do that withdrawal of consent? Is that through an Article 32 petition or an Article 31 redress petition?
There has to be a mechanism, because you can't, if you're going to have a government, you can't have individuals not consenting to a myriad of different things. Let's say somebody who's, you know, so adamant about the environment that they don't believe there should be any roads at all. They don't want to pay taxes on the roads. They don't want to pay taxes. They think it's immoral, let's say, to put pavement down. And so can they themselves say, well, I don't consent to this, so therefore, A, I'm not using the roads anymore, and B, you can't make me pay for them.
Well, Article 3, I believe, Society, Natural Rights, 2, number 4, sorry. Among the natural rights, some are in their very nature unalienable, because no equivalent can be given or received for them. Of this kind are the rights of conscience. So if it's against your conscience to support those roads, you know, and then the question is, how do we get those roads? Because, you know, commerce, we need to get around, we need to fix the roads that are there, and so you have to look at different systems that are in operation elsewhere. For clues, in Chile, for instance, if they want a new road, they put it out to public contractors and private contractors, and they bid on the roads. They put up a toll system for an exact period of time, and once that period of time goes by, the tolls have to come out, and that company either made its money back or didn't.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's different ways of handling these things.
Mm-hmm. But you can see my point is that if you had, you know, 100 different groups in the state disagreeing with, you know, 100 different policies.
And they could simply say that it's against their conscience just because they don't want to pay.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
It doesn't have. Yeah,
It's not
exactly.
beyond me to do that.
Right.
If it's not something, you know, but it has to be resolved, and it has to be really a conscience issue.
But I can see how you could use that, like you said, for a redress where you had enough people telling the government, no, we don't want to pay for President Obama to go to Martha's Vineyard. If he can't afford to go, like the rest of us,
Absolutely.
he doesn't go.
Yep.
You know, that would be, to me, a legitimate petition to the government, that the President of the United States is not allowed to go on vacation unless he can afford to do it himself.
It certainly shouldn't be on our tax dollars.
Right. I mean, that's more like a king than it is a president who's elected or representing the people.
No. But they, you know, those are kind of personal issues at that level.
Yeah, it's a little, a little petty, but it's still. I bet you get enough signatures.
Oh, you probably would. But how does it affect the? What's the legitimate purpose of government in the first place? We all have a life, and our life involves having children, and some of us, and then you're going to work, you're going to be productive. If you're going to be productive, you're going to acquire property of some sort, whether it be real property or other property. So you have the right to your life, to your children's lives, to take care of them the way you see fit, to acquire property, to protect that property. So my right to my life, which is all these things, and to protect that, which I've worked for and acquired, is first and foremost. I mean, if I don't have that, then why bother?
Right.
And collectively, we all have that same right to have a life and to protect it. So when we collectively get together to secure our rights, that's what we form government for. There is no other legitimate purpose to government. I can't tell John to take your money and give it to somebody else. I don't have authority to do that. And so if I don't have authority to do that, how can I delegate that authority to the government to take somebody else's money and give it to a third party? I don't have that authority. So there's a lot of issues that certainly need to be addressed.
Yeah, it's gotten to the point where the government is so far afield from what it was intended to be. Was it President Madison? I think it was. There was like wasn't there a flood down south? I forget where. And they came to the Congress and says, we need you to help us. You need to get tax money.
Oh, I remember something like that.
We need tax money to help after this hurricane or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And he said, I have no issue with people collecting money to support you because it's a very good cause, but that's not what the government was formed to do. Mm-hmm. So you're on your own. I mean, if you want to collect, talk to the people in the northern states and see if they can collect money and help you out. And we're pretty charitable people, so I'm sure we can work something out, but that's not the role of the federal government.
Yeah.
So I think he would have been present, so he probably would have had to veto whatever intention they had at the time. Mm-hmm. But it's true. I mean, if you had a government that was limited to what it was supposed to be,
you'd have
pretty
a very
cheap.
Small government.
Right.
It's very cheap.
Our government it says right at the beginning of the U.S. Constitution that it's for the general welfare and defense of the nation. There's nothing in there about attacking, or preemptive. Preemptive attacks.
Right, preemptive war, yeah.
The limitations of that Constitution are crystal clear.
Yeah.
Chile, Frank Szabo's down in Chile, so I've been checking.
That's right.
So I've been looking at Chile, studying some of the stuff they do down there. But they've passed a resolution that they will not support or do business with anybody that's at war with another country.
Interesting.
Not do business. Foreign aid and that, those kinds of things. The things that we do for other people. They won't provide arms. They won't provide medical treatment. They won't do anything.
Wow.
You want to go to war? It's a big mistake. You shouldn't do it, and we're not supporting it. Huh.
So that's pretty cool.
Well, they're staying out of everybody else's business,
right.
Which is what we should be doing.
Non-intervention. Yeah.
Switzerland do that too, doesn't it?
Switzerland has a pretty unique way of looking at everything. Really,
Yeah.
Everybody turns 18 and gets sent to boot camp. You're going to learn how to protect yourself, protect the country. I think the first 6 months they're out of boot camp, they have to carry their weapon with them everywhere they go.
24/7.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
And
that's why they make the Steyr Og so light.
There you go.
I'm joking. I don't know.
I don't know either. But they certainly have some different outlooks.
Yeah.
What's interesting in the U.S. Constitution here under Section 8, for instance, just one of the paragraphs in it, I don't want to go away from New Hampshire, but, to raise and support armies, but no appropriation of money to that use shall be for longer than 2 years. And this is to declare war, grant letters of marque, reprisal, and make rules concerning captures on land and water, to raise and support armies, but no appropriation of money to that use shall be longer than 2 year term of 2 years, to provide and maintain a navy. Mm-hmm. That's kind of interesting. how the United States Constitution says that they'll have to go back and refund the Army
Or
every
Navy.
2 years.
Yep.
No, the Navy is a funded to provide and maintain a Navy.
Okay.
The Navy is
Yeah, at the time
the main.
at the time that was written, the Navy, the reason the sun never set on the British Empire is because they had the greatest Navy in the world. The Navy was it. Now it's not. It's still very, very important, but
It is very, very important, but it says to raise and support armies, but no appropriation of money to that use shall be for longer than 2 years.
right. They didn't want a large standing army in the United States.
I don't know if that's a standing army in the United States. That sounds like they need, because they had to provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the nation, of the Union, suppress insurrections and repel invasions.
Right.
So, but they're talking about militia, then they're talking about army.
Right.
So it sounds like, I mean, correct me if I'm, if you've seen this, but when I read that, I say, geez, I wonder if armies are to be funded every 2 years, and Navy is to be funded perpetual. That's
Yeah.
what it sounds like. That's what it's saying.
Yeah, it makes
Look to-
sense.
So every 2 years,
But that
do
wouldn't.
they go back and ask for more? Do they ask for armies to be refunded every 2 years?
I think practically they do because every 2 years. Well, every 2 years they're supposed to get a budget, which would include a refunding or a continuation of the funding of. They haven't had a budget in six
I think
years,
it's
right?
been 6 years now.
So
yeah.
therefore, so Gene Shaheen in the Senate of the United States has already violated the Constitution just in that aspect. If they haven't voted to to fund the Army again, they're violating their oath of office.
Well, you bring up the oaths of office. Are you familiar with any example whatsoever of a?
I took a shower like a week ago, John.
Yeah, I think you just.
Yeah,
did
you
it.
take one every week whether you need it or not, right?
Well, no, not every week.
Oh, okay.
I just saying it was. Oh, I thought you were leaving. Sorry.
No, my phone battery tied to a plug.
It's good that NSA can listen in. So anyway, what was
The oaths of office is something that John and I have talked about quite a bit. I mean, for 2 years we've been looking for how do you hold somebody accountable who doesn't honor their oath of office. Jack Kimball had a big rally about 6 months ago. in
Yep, I
Concord
remember
for
it.
that. There's no way that I know of to hold any official whatsoever accountable to their oath of office. First of all, how do you know when they violate it? What are some of the examples? And you have an oath of office at the town level, planning board members, zoning board members, selectmen. So how do we know what their scope of authority is specifically, and how do we hold them accountable? More importantly, accountability is everything. You can talk about what they can and can't do.
The simple way to comment on that is the best way to hold them accountable is they're up for election every 2 years and you kick them out.
That's not an oath of office violation.
Well, they should
When
be
they breached-
if they've broken their oath of office and the people know about it, the people should be educated enough to say, all right, well, you broke your oath of office. I am never voting for you again. Leave. Hit the road, Jack.
People don't
At
realize
the next election.
Correct.
The problem is how many more times you're going to break your oath of office between the time you catch them the first time and the next.
Oh, I understand. I'm just saying
If
that
you're in for 6 years, yeah.
Yeah,
Senator 6 years.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Ultimately, there's that.
Yeah.
Okay, but you're right. There should be.
Well, Article 38.
What's Article 38? You can't
Article
just keep saying.
Article 38 of the.
Remember, we're not talking just us. We got viewers. You can say Article 38, but that I can say Article 27. Article 27.
You can say
Isn't that a movie, Article 27?
Precinct 19.
Precinct
Oh,
19.
That must be what I'm thinking of, yeah.
Yeah.
Article 38 of the New Hampshire Constitution.
Adam 12.
Adam 12 is good. Yeah.
It's a good show.
Car 54. Go ahead.
Article 38 of the New Hampshire Constitution says that the people have the right to require.
What does it say? Exactly what does it say? Not what.
I'll tell you what,
it's
I'll paraphrase it so it makes sense to you when I read it, because I'm going to jumble some
No.
stuff
Say
together.
it. Say it legit.
Paraphrase
and
after?
Yeah, paraphrase after. People.
All right.
We have an incredibly brilliant
Excellent.
audience.
A lot of Malaysians.
A frequent recurrence to the fundamental principles of the Constitution and a constant adherence to justice, moderation, temperance, industry, frugality, and all the social virtues are indispensably necessary to preserve the blessings of liberty and good government. The people ought, therefore, to have a particular regard to all those principles in the choice of their officers and representatives, and they have a right to require of their lawgivers and magistrates an exact and constant observance of them in the formation and execution of the laws necessary for the good administration of government.
Right.
So,
Now you can paraphrase.
well, the people have a right to require of their lawgivers and magistrates an exact and constant adherence to the fundamental principles of the Constitution in the formation and execution of the laws necessary for the good administration of government. So if we have that right to require, how are we supposed to do that? Where do we go to require this?
Right. What vehicle do you have to say, to slap somebody upside the head?
We used to have redress. It's still there. It hasn't changed. I don't know of any other process, especially an oath of office violation.
Well, you've done the research. What did they used to do?
No idea. I haven't found anything on oaths of office violations.
Have you had any? Well, they had
I don't think anyone's ever been removed from office for an oath violation.
Well, they had the two senators. A senator was president of the Senate, and the other senator
That's a recall.
in Colorado. Do we have?
That wasn't an oath of office violation.
It was too. They voted against the Second Amendment.
That wasn't treated as an oath of office violation. People were upset because of their votes, and they went and did a recall election, gave them a chance to run again against new other people, and they lost in the recall election. They were allowed to run again. If they breached their oath of office, they would not be allowed to run again. They'd be considered lowlife.
That makes sense.
Right, as the New Hampshire statute 92:2 says.
92:2.
92:2.
What does that say?
Well, now that's statute, and that's not Constitution, but that's statute, corporate contract law, that says that if you, in order to be a representative and vote, you need to sign your oath of office, and you need to execute that. And then if you violate said oath of office, you shall be removed henceforth, which is from now forever. So, I mean, this is clear. So, I mean, if you're speeding and you're going 90 and a 60, you get a ticket. And you go fast enough and you get arrested. If you violate your oath of office, you get removed henceforth. But is that the only penalty that you should suffer? Should there be a...
Yeah, but no, you're saying nobody's been removed at all.
I can't find evidence of any representative or senator ever being removed for violating their oath of office. And if you ask most representatives, they'll say that, geez,
They don't know how to do it.
we violate it all the time. I mean, a lot of bills are absolutely contrary to the oath that we took to support the constitutions of the United States of America and New Hampshire.
A lot of bills are contrary to the fundamental principles of the Constitution. And the people have a right to require that constant and exact adherence to those principles. So
And those fundamental principles
it happens all
are
the time.
Justice, moderation, temperance, industry, frugality, and all the social virtues. They're indispensable and necessary to preserve the blessings of liberty and good government. So
Frugality is something we're not good at as a country. What was there was another one in there too. Was it moderation?
Moderation, temperance,
Temperance,
justice, industry, and frugality.
And those are the social virtues that are listed there.
Yeah.
But along with those, one of the principles is the right to self-defense.
Yeah.
Your Article 4, your conscience, your right to conscience, and there's a lot of principles, there's a lot of social virtues, and there's supposed to be an exact and constant adherence to those. So,
And the people have the right to require of their lawgivers and magistrates an exact and constant adherence to that.
Yeah, but they don't require it.
well, here's a good example. Let me ask you this.
Maybe they will once they start seeing these programs that tell them that they can, that they have that.
Right.
They have that right. That's what they're supposed to do.
It's okay to set that standard and,
That's
and
their-
hold
yeah.
folks accountable
That
to
is
it.
the
Yeah.
standard.
That
Yeah.
is the standard. That's
Sure.
what they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
And our legislators are spending a lot of time working on legislation which I don't believe they have authority to pass. Whether it's good or bad, it's totally irrelevant. You know, there's something I just heard about last week regarding dogs. Some bill to like you have Veterans Day, Memorial Day. They want to have a dogs that are in service or animals that are in service to give them their own holiday for their good service.
Yeah.
You know, where does I'd like to know, not that, I don't care. Doesn't matter to me if you have a day that's set aside for that.
Right.
But I want to know, where's the provision in the Constitution that says that you have the right to do anything like that?
It's in the Hallmark Constitution.
Yeah, you're right. It's actually the hallmark of legislation, really.
Ah, I see what you did there.
Yeah,
Yes.
but no, it's. I know that many years ago they had fast day. They've Lincoln set up. I think it was Lincoln that did Thanksgiving. It was under Lincoln's administration. So they've been setting up days of remembrance and things like that for a long time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where is that specifically? I don't know, but it's as far as precedent, it's been there for a long.
It's been there for a long time, and I'm not necessarily picking on that, but
You just hate dogs.
no, I
They're
love
veterans
dogs.
and service dogs, veteran dogs.
Did you hear about that pigeon? Some pigeons that got.
Honorable discharge.
Wow, we only got 10 minutes left.
Pension.
Cripe. We're gonna do this next week anyway. But
Yeah.
I just didn't realize it was going that fast.
Yeah.
No, there's a pigeon in England that a couple of them that got like medals of honor and stuff like that during World War II for. Well, they get shot and everything else, and they still made
Purple
it back.
Heart?
I don't know. I don't
That's
know.
a
I don't know
Purple
if they
Heart.
pinning it on probably
it's
kill them
England.
anyway. So
That would be ironic.
but no, they were
These are
talking.
British pigeons?
Yes,
Or- yeah, well,
carrier pigeons.
Yeah.
I just thought that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's Britain. I mean, they can.
So anyway, so we start off for this week. We're started off with the premise that, and that's federal and state, that
They exist.
they exist. They're corporations, and their only purpose is to provide for the mutual safety and security of everybody. To have a reason. In other words, if you don't enter into a state of society, then there are no rules, and we basically go back to the feudal lords and and even further back where you had roving, marauding gangs basically running countries. You had, this clan and this clan and this clan, and they just, killed each other forever. Okay, so that's why you enter into a form of government. The mutual security is we're going to agree to a set of rules. So that we can all live in reasonable security, in that that if, like for instance, monetarily, if you buy a loaf of bread, that's what the money's worth, and you can go take that money and buy something else. Monetary security, as far as that roving band of Vikings isn't going to come in and kill your chickens and eat them and do weird things to your family members. Not to say I'm not like anti-Viking, by the way.
Right.
I don't want to say I'm not like
But they like chickens.
Yeah, it's just they're chicken.
They make their lifestyle choice, and
I'm not saying.
as long as they're not hurting anybody.
I'm not
else.
like Vikophobic or something.
Right,
I just
right,
don't want to
right.
get that impression.
But you're generalizing that all Vikings kill chickens, and that is absolutely not true.
No,
It
right.
isn't.
not true.
It's not.
No. I mean, most of them probably do.
Everyone that I've known.
I mean, most stereotypes are true.
Every Viking you've ever met.
Yes.
Yes.
Killed chickens and did things that are on. But anyway, so the establishment of government is for that purpose, so that people can live in a society that has certain ethical and moral guidelines to go by so that everybody can exist in that environment and thrive in that environment. And like you pointed out, one of the primary purposes was that so that if you built a house, you could own that house. You could own your property, and you didn't have to fortify it with, you know, walls of concrete and stuff like that for the invading hordes of Viking. Here I go with a Viking thing. I'm sorry for my Viking audience.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
The Vikings in Malaysia that watch us are going to be
Yeah,
very upset with you.
they're going to be wicked.
We're going to get letters.
Yes, again. But that's it. You know what I mean? You didn't have to build a outer perimeter and a moat. I mean, I got a moat. You saw the moat.
Yeah, oh, I had to cross it. It was
Yeah.
very. It's a good thing I brought my swim trunks.
Exactly. So, but you didn't have to build the moat. Okay. You had if you owned a property, you were secure in the ownership of that property, and that is absolutely fundamental to this country, because if you can't own property, there is no point in getting up and going to work.
Are you talking about real estate or property? Or are you talking
Both.
about the land that...
I'm talking I'm using real estate as a tangible example. Okay, but without forming a government, without having a government that guarantees a certain amount of harmony in society, you can't own property, because somebody can just come and take it from you. They can just shoot you, shoot your wife, shoot the dog. Well, they probably wouldn't shoot the dog.
You have other property. What about your time? You know,
I know. I know, but I'm just using that as a tangible thing. But it was it John Locke? Who was
John Locke?
Locke, right?
Locke.
You know, that basically said if you can't own that property, people aren't going to work. Okay, I mean, if I have if you have a teenage kid and they work weekends for months in a row to buy a bicycle, and they buy a 10-speed, and the neighborhood kid can just come over and punch them in the face and take it, they're not going to work weekends to buy a bicycle anymore.
Not the second time around.
No, they're going to say, "Well, I'll just find somebody smaller than me and take theirs."
Gary, I have a friend that's a farmer in upstate New York. I just talked to him, just got off the phone. He owns a lot of land out in northern New York State that he says there's natural gas underneath his land, and he knows it. And because there's a lot of natural gas in that Pennsylvania, they're drilling. But New York State does not allow drilling of natural gas on your own property, on your own land. So I own a piece of land in central Oregon, in the middle of nowhere. There's a moratorium, and the state is not issuing any permits to take water out of the ground. So, other than I think I can water an acre. I have a large parcel out there, and I can only water because I don't have water rights that come with my land. And the state, I have to get a permit to be able to take enough water out for my own personal use.
That gets into a different.
So, do you really own?
Well, that gets into a different.
Do you own the property, the right to be on it, or do you own the land?
Well, no. You get into a different part of the law, and that's called riparian rights. In other words, a stream goes through my property, okay? I call it a moat, it's a stream. Anyway, the stream goes through my property. I have no right to dam that up and stop it just because it goes through my property. There's a riparian right, which means that everybody has common that owns property along that has the right to the use of that water to a point. So your aquifer under the ground would fall under the same category as riparian rights. You can't, in other words, you can let the water go down past your property. You can use some of it to water your lawn, and you can use it for this or whatever. But you can't throw sewage in it and destroy that asset that somebody downstream has. That's a riparian right. So that falls under a different category, and it's still constitutional for them to restrict your ability to devastate that.
Yeah, you don't own the wildlife on your land. You don't own the water
No, you
that
never
flows
did.
through it.
You never did, though.
But up to 8 acres, I know people that do own water in this state because it's less than 8 acres. I think you can own an 8-acre pond or less than 10 acres.
But anyway, we're going to pick up where
Article 2. We're going to be talking about Article 2.
Article 2. That's
your
fast.
favorite one.
Yeah, it goes by quick.
It goes by quick.
I wonder, who's on next?
The progress report.
Oh.
Yeah.
They probably wouldn't want to talk about the Constitution.
Nah, they probably already
We can
have
ask.
something lined up.
We can ask them if they can discuss the Constitution.
But yeah, actually, it'd be actually kind of cool because you get a completely different angle on how they see that.
Yeah.
Because they go on and they swear to uphold the Constitution, but they see it different. They see it considerably different.
And
anyway,
that's amazing.
It is amazing, but it's not.
Amazing.
It's a reality you have to deal with. Hey, we'll see you next week. We're going on to Article 2. This could take another.
It might take 2 and 2A. This is going to
2
be
and
100.
2A.
There's 2, Article 2 and 2A.
Oh, I thought you were talking about routes. We're going back to roads again.
No.
No.
I usually
Article
take
2.
93.
93.
Yeah.
Right. Or 3 and 3.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
go
yeah.
3 and 3A.
That's true. Yeah.
We'll see you next week, guys.
Bye, everybody.